standpoint, try to look at it from material extraction all the way through the end of its life cycle and whatever waste and energy goes into the process. Well, more alphabet soup for you. There's, when we started looking at that too, there is the basic life cycle assessment, which is a procedure, not an end product, which is what makes it seemingly to us a little bit more nebulous. It was difficult to find. You can't really get like an LCA in a hard copy that you can deliver to somebody. You'll see what the deliverable is here in a second. But you had to make the distinction between that procedure for calculating those environmental impacts from an LCI, which would be more of the data collection and inventory side of things, versus the LCIA, which is an impact assessment. So that's, if I could summarize that and just kind of keep it short, it'd be kind of the what does it mean step, where you're really looking at the inventory in terms of, you kind of look at it from an analysis standpoint, and then getting to the economic side of things with the life cycle costing. So be careful when you're looking at life cycle assessment that you'll start to notice some of these seemingly look very similar in terms of the acronyms, and they are related, but there are these distinctions between them. The LCA, the life cycle assessment, is really the one I wanted to focus on for a few minutes, because I mentioned PCRs, LCA, and EPDs back at the beginning of the presentation, just to kind of demonstrate the notion of this alphabet soup. And each of these you could unpack, and I don't want to make this presentation any more technical than it necessarily needs to be to have a discussion here. But the LCA is more of a process, and there are rules at play that are emerging in the industry now to make sure that one person's LCA is comparable to another person's LCA. This is guided by PCR, that's a product category rule. So for a particular category of a product, there are guided by ISO standards, International Standard Organization criteria, ways that you'll define the material that you're looking at for the LCA, how really what the true sphere is of the analysis that you're going to undertake. And then the ultimate deliverable that you get from the LCA product is, or alphabet soup, an EPD, an Environmental Product Declaration. And this is a short, kind of like an executive summary of what the findings were from a life cycle assessment. It's, you're going to see EPDs emerging in the industry, and they'll probably become something bigger than LEED itself in just the next couple of years. It's getting a lot of traction in the industry. It's now that they're, it was funny, when I was in your seat many years ago, I actually had an instructor tell us that you can't really fully define a life cycle assessment. That you take something like concrete, and you look at where it's extracted, what goes into the aggregate, what's the water content, okay, here's your water, where's your water coming from? That you can imagine how quickly you get this extremely tangled web, and that it's never going to be feasible for someone to, in a valid way, carve out the extents of the analysis, get industry consensus near and abroad, and then get some kind of deliverable out of that process. It's exciting to see now, all these years later, that there's actually the emergence now and the traction being gained by these little executive summaries, these EPDs, because through these international standards, the product category rules, now those assessments are having specific criteria, and that's producing comparable results. So this is a quick little diagram that I could unpack this for an hour as well, but I can't, and we'll lay on another layer of technical content here with you guys. But essentially the process is, when you're a manufacturer and you want to get in this game of providing an EPD, you need to first look and see if there is a product category rule. If there's already one that exists, that's what you should use. If one doesn't exist because it's an emerging marketplace, then there's, like I said, the ISO standards and criteria that you need to develop to define what the product category rules are, then others can use that which you define for that specific product category. You conduct that LCA, you can see this green box here, the different 5 different basic categories that you're going to look at, everything from eutrophication, manufacturing, well actually that's where how you define the specific life cycle, and then you've got the impacts that come out of that, like global warming and eutrophication, ozone emissions, things like that. So you could always parse these and get into some of the specifics, but the industry has a standard, and there are the European systems versus the domestic systems, and they do differ a little bit, but in general, a general sense of alignment's being formed that's adhering to what's basically depicted in this diagram, which is helping everybody basically get on the same page. So you can, based on your PCR, conduct your LCA in a common way. Everybody's playing by the same rules, coming up with the same metrics. From that, you're going to produce your EPD, and if you adhere to all the international standards, you're going to have it be third-party verified, and there's going to be that third-party checks and balances in the equation there as it gets reviewed and certified, and then you can finally publish that. So it's just exciting to see that. This is actually from Interface. They're one of the leaders that we've come across when we've tried to look for this information. I know there's some of you that are focused on interiors. You guys already know this probably better than I do, but they're very forthcoming with this information. You can go on there, and we just, for particular analysis, we were comparing 2 different results from 2 similar products from Interface, and you can see here, they list 6 categories. That last diagram showed 5. This is what I'm talking about. It's not fully aligned yet, but generally covering the same spheres of information. You can see Tracy and the CML, different numbers associated with each of those. Those are different systems, a domestic and a European system. They produce slightly different results. They draw the line in the sand just a little bit differently. You know, this kind of it depends aspect to all this, especially for you engineers, is perhaps a little bit unsettling. It's for all of us a little bit confusing, but thanks to drivers like Lead V4, everybody's starting to get their heads in the game with this and trying to compare these metrics and starting to make sense of it. Just to kind of bring it back to Lead version 4, because Anthony wanted me to make sure that I did address that specifically in here, as I kind of just pile on you guys all these different acronyms and where everything comes from and how it's all kind of interrelated. I did mention a couple of the MR credits, and first one being the Building Product Disclosure and Optimization, and there's the Environmental Product Declaration avenue within that. There, basically, you get a point for manufacturers that have EPDs. Without unpacking it and getting into the details there, it's just, again, disclosure and having that information available can get you credit. Looking at the option for materials ingredients, then that's looking at the reporting information, and that's where you have options for things like the health product declarations, the cradle-to-cradle certified products, and then there's the whole controversial credit about banning PVC is misrepresented in the media. There's no actual ban on it, but if you want to cite a material that's got the C2C certification as part of their system, they have PVC on one of their red lists. So it's one credit that we're talking about out of the entire rating system, and it's optional. It's not a prerequisite or anything, but it's good for us. It's healthy for us to start looking at this material toxicity and looking at the human health impacts and what we can do about that. So it's an ongoing process. It's kind of a challenge in the industry right now. And it's difficult to find EPDs and HPDs for everything. Sometimes when we were trying to apply this in the field to products, projects, we just come up to a wall sometimes. We just can't find the right information for enough materials yet. And that's a little bit frustrating sometimes. But that's quickly changing. there's more and more traction being gained with these different reporting protocols all the time. And so you guys are emerging professionals here in a time when you're really at just the beginning of this revolution with regard to material transparency and these reporting protocols and these tools that sometimes have these really confusing looking metrics like 0.000013, more alphabet soup there, you gotta be chemist to figure that out. But there's going to be, it's going to come back to creating these tools like the Pharaoh's database, these quick little summaries that are going to help us be able to compare things pretty readily and help project teams make better choices with regard to our materials. So, I have a feeling some of you might have some questions. I am out of time and it is lunchtime. I'll stick around if anyone wants to talk a little bit more about this. If anyone wants the presentation too, you can leave me your contact info. I'll send it to you this weekend.
Actually, we're going to be posting those up, the PDFs on the conference Facebook page.
Perfect.
So, and we're also trying to get GBCI credits, so eventually, if we do, we'll send you out the GBCI numbers for your continuing education. By default, even if we don't get it,